Look at this amazing view, guys. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. Hello. So it is freezing out in London. Well, not London, the UK. And we are not used to this weather at all, but I just had to take the time to talk to you because look at this amazing scenery. Like, it is crazy. I'm looking at it as I should be looking at you. I'm looking at the scenery, but more to the point, this week is National Eating Disorder Awareness Week, and this is a topic that is very near and dear to me, so I just wanted to take the time to talk to you about it. I can't believe it. It's literally frozen over. I got a little crow friend. Hello, my friend. I'm going to walk a different way so that he's not disturbed. But it's Eating Disorder Awareness Week, and this is a topic that is very near and dear to me because I am someone who has had an eating disorder, who is currently recovering from an eating disorder. It's been a fair few months now since I have shown any restricting, binging or purging behaviours, but it creeps up on you and it's really hard. And one of the hardest things about this is that when you talk about eating disorders, let's just pause to let the family go by. Whoop, whoop, we're back. So when you talk about eating disorders, one of the first things that people immediately go to, and it's no one's fault because, well, it's an amalgamation of problems, but one of the first things you go to is the body. You think an extremely skinny person or an extremely big person, most of the time an extremely skinny person, and it all comes down to how they physically look and this idea that they're trying to reach this ideal and that they think skinny is so good, or that they really want to look a certain way. And yeah, there is a physical component to it in terms of body dysmorphia, but even that's not physical. The thing is, an eating disorder is like any other mental health disorder in that it is all in the mind. When we are thinking about our bodies, we're not actually concerned with how our body objectively looks, and it's not about how our body objectively looks, it's how we feel about it in our minds. And even though most people think of anorexics when they think of eating disorders, anorexia only accounts for about 10% of eating disorders. My blueberry is blowing in the wind. I think it's something like 80% of people with an eating disorder are either a healthy weight or they are overweight. When I had my deepest, worst, most horrific struggles, I am talking absolutely the lowest of the low, I was a perfectly healthy weight. I was a really good weight. I'm not going to say what it is because numbers can be very triggering for someone with an eating disorder, but I had a good, objectively good BMI. I looked fine. Ironically, when I was also struggling and I was at this healthy weight, I was still being asked by people, are you losing weight? Are you losing weight? And that was very triggering for me because a large part of my personal struggle was that people started criticizing me and they started body policing me, commenting on my weight, my progression, my eating habits, which were healthy. They were absolutely healthy at one point, but because we have such a skewed view of food and eating and body, etc., and because we really we live in some areas that just don't know what healthy patterns are. When I was at my healthiest, my objectively healthiest, I was getting a lot of criticism and a lot of comments about that, and it beat me down to the point where I started to worry about, am I healthy? Am I normal? Am I too skinny? Am I too large? Am I too muscular? Am I this? Am I that? And objectively, I was fine. But internally, I had heard it so much that it became a real struggle. It really did. It became an absolute worry. Oh, doggy friends. Another pause for us. Whoop, whoop. And we're back. Happy face, serious topic. It became a real struggle. And suddenly I found myself checking my body a lot more in the mirror, because I was constantly being told in a very concerned way by very loving people who meant the best that I was not in a good place. I was not in a good place. I was not the right weight. I was not eating right. And at the time I was. But because they were saying that, it then became something that I became more aware of, more restrictive of. And actually the things that I was doing that at one point were healthy suddenly became things that I monitored to an extreme and a very unhealthy way, to the point where I couldn't sustain it. And then binging came into it, and then purging came into it, and it spiraled, and I kept it secret because people with eating disorders are so ashamed. Usually we're ashamed. And the thing is, if you've starved yourself, then when you do eventually eat, your body naturally just loses control. It goes into a full-on mode, and it feels like a complete and utter loss of control. People with eating disorders aren't doing it to reach a physical ideal. They're not voluntarily stuffing themselves. It is a case of, like any mental disorder, like any mental struggle, we're not coping well with life. We're not coping well with the stressors that we're facing. There might be too many, and we've turned to negative coping tactics that are centralized around food or body, and either restricting or indulging to excessive and unproductive ways. And that is it. And we don't see ourselves as a physical ideal. This is the thing. People think that when you have an eating disorder, it's because you think you're being perfect. No. When I had an eating disorder, when I was struggling, I wanted to shrink away. I really did. I hated how I looked. You will find no one who loathes how they look more than someone with an eating disorder. At the same time, we feel trapped, and we don't know how to get out of these behaviours because they're unproductive, they're unconstructive, they're negative, but they are the coping tactic that we have adopted. And because of that, I'm changing hands because this one's freezing. Because we've adopted these unproductive tactics, they're our comfort blanket, and we hate it and we don't want it. But it's like being in an abusive relationship. I was in an abusive relationship at the time, but where you're trapped and you feel horrible, but you just don't know how to break free. And I just want to say, for anyone struggling, it is possible. I'm recovering. I have been for a long time now. I have a good relationship with food. I have a good relationship with my body. There are highs and lows, but the thing is, I want to build myself up now. I don't want to shrink away. I want to explore the world. I want to wander around in the freezing cold and look at this beautiful, amazing, snowy atmosphere, and just, and I want to have the health and the nourishment to do so. And it's attitude. It's an attitude of gratitude. It is seeking the help you need. Cognitive behavioural therapy is so important. Other forms of therapy might work. Support groups, amazing, because the sad reality is that the NHS is so stretched in so many different ways that you could say get the help you need. Chances are you're going to be on that referral list for a very long time. You're not going to be able to get help through that method. You need it right now. You cannot wait. I know that it is hard, but there will be other ways. So go to the Beat Eating Disorder charity page, search for local support groups, go on their online pages if nothing else is around you right now. Call their helpline when you need to. Call the Samaritans if you're really struggling and there is no one else. The helplines are down. Always be proactive in your recovery. Once you realise that you are struggling, be proactive. And for those who are not struggling with an eating disorder and who really struggle to get it, notice how the things I am mentioning have nothing necessarily to do with gaining or losing weight or with eating certain foods, because it's not about that. It is about the mental, the cognitive, the self-care, the self-love, finding positive coping tactics that will replace the negative ones that we have brought into effect, and then proactively implementing them in times of struggle and forgiving ourselves when we do slip up, because no one's perfect. There will be lapses, there will be hard days, and part of recovery is accepting that and finding ways to reconcile and sit with the discomfort that comes with it. It is all mental, because eating disorders are a mental health concern, and I really hope that we can get that out there this week. Whew, well, this was a very long and emotional ramble, and I really hope that it made a lot of sense to you. And it's getting windier now, and it is really cold, and I have a punnet of blueberries that I am totally looking forward to. Not going to eat all that at once. One day that would have been the case, but no, I can savour food now. That will be part of my healthy, balanced, proactive, nourishing day to make sure that I can achieve the things I want in life. And I hope that you can seek recovery if you need it to get to the same place, and I hope that you can understand and support those in your life who are struggling otherwise. And remember, it's not all about the physical, it's about everything else and so much more. So I love you all. Take care. Enjoy your day. Hope it's a snow day for you too. Mwah.